Who doesn't have a have a mic?
I'll do one.
I'd like to call it Tuesday, July the 14th, 2020 Commissioner Work Session to order. If you would, let's join and have a word of invocation and a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please pray with me. Father, we thank you for the day you have provided. Lord, we come with our hearts saddened and full because of everything that we hear going on in America. Father, a land that you have truly blessed from our inception and continue to bless. Help us to not lose sight of the fact that we're all brothers and sisters as we pass through this life. Help us to respect each other in the living of our life. Help us to be mindful of other people as we make decisions. We pray for Harnett County, dear God, that we would do that which would be pleasing and acceptable in your sight. We would pray, Father, for the meeting that we have today, that decisions made would bring honor and glory to you. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Our first order of business is the City of Dunn revised property purchase proposal. Mayor William Elmore and City Manager Steve Newshafer.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
This is William Elmore and Steve Newshafer here on this end of the conversation. Good morning to you and other council members and staff as well. We appreciate you giving us the opportunity to make a presentation to you this morning. I think you all have a revised offer of interest from us on some a different track. On the first proposal we made, didn't feel like that there was enough interest coming from the county that y'all had enough interest in selling that upper parcel, so we sent our engineers back to the drawing board, and they have began to do some research and have come up with some possibilities of a smaller tract of land to be purchased from you guys, identified as parcel A, and then we would want to buy a portion of parcel B and C, and I think you have that information before you this morning, and just wanted to put that out there, get a feel from you all to see if that's something that that the county would have an interest in moving in a positive direction for us. Obviously, through conversations and meetings that we've had in the past, you know, we have a need and a desire to enlarge our plant and build an updated plant, as our plant is nearing 60 years old, and we soon are going to have to do something. So we're trying to make some preparations for our future growth and to be able to service the customers that we have. So that's the sort of the presentation we wanted to make this morning, and see maybe what interest there was, or if and any questions that maybe we could answer for you.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for the mayor?
I do. This is Commissioner Johnson. Tell us about the greenway that would be going through part of the property. Does that need to be relocated?
I'm going to let Steve reference that.
Yes, sir. I think once we come to an agreement, absolutely, we're going to have to work with the rail trail and greenway folks to relocate that, and find the best route that would obviously accommodate the plant location, but also accommodate the trail as well. So we're willing to work with everyone on that and find a suitable compromise location.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Mr. Miller?
Mr. Chairman, we did feel like after conversation with your management over there that they indicated that selling a portion of B and some of this other property was not a problem for the county. So that's the reason that we went this direction, was at the suggestion of the county. And so we think we could make this work, and certainly are willing, as Steve just said, to sit down and figure out how we could relocate the trail. And then there's some pipe issues that would have to be addressed as well. But we're willing to do all of that if we can make something work.
Commissioner Miller?
Gentlemen, what, in this process, it looks to me, and this is my opinion, it looks to me that the county is putting themselves, and the county and the city of Dunn are putting themselves in competition for water revenue. Your plans to expand your plant, at what point do you see the county and the city of Dunn becoming competitors for the expansion of the water system in the county?
Mr. Miller, I think at this time, honestly, we are probably already in competition because we service, I think the county is in 6 different counties, and we service our town, but we've been in the water business for 100 years this year, providing services to our city and some of the outlying areas, and we service this portion of Harnett County, being done, and some of the surrounding areas, but we also go into 3 other counties already. And I think that the county does a lot of in the western part of your county, as well as some other counties as well. So I don't know that all that probably could be considered competition. I prefer it to be, I like to refer it as a partnership. We're all in this game together, and certainly the more that we can do in the Dunn area to service our folks and increase tax base and that sort of thing, it certainly helps it helps the county to benefit tremendously off of what we do on our end that we're kind of doing for ourselves. And I would say, Mr. Miller, that we have put in so much money over the years in developing our infrastructure that, we feel like we're in pretty good shape, and we've sort of taken care of our needs down here, and we just have a need that we've got to get a new plant. That's just, there's no question about that our plan is going to soon be obsolete in just a few short years, and that's why we're trying to do some planning now so we can move forward.
Any other questions? Or any other commissioners? And seeing no other questions, Mayor, we appreciate your presentation, and we will take it under consideration.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask how would the county consider proceeding from here, or how should we proceed when it's something that y'all will continue to discuss in workshop, or would it come before your board or regular meeting, or how would y'all proceed?
I guess we are the workshop and the board, so we would, the 5 of us, and along with consideration from the county manager and from Steve Ward with Public Utilities, we would carefully listen and look at what you have proposed and to see if we are in agreement with it, not in agreement with it, can be modified, or whatever the situation may be. So that's now that you've made a formal presentation for what what Dunn would like to do, then we would do our due diligence to decide if we would accept it or reject it or modify it.
Do you have any idea what type of timeline you might be looking at to maybe y'all could give us some direction?
I'm going to ask the county manager if she would give her input on that.
Well, we'll need time to speak with Steve Ward and do some assessment. I mean, I would say within a couple of weeks, maybe like by the end of the month. Yeah,
okay. Our engineers have already begun looking at the project, and we just, if it's something that we can move forward on, there's some other work that they would need to begin to do. So we would like to, certainly like to know, as soon as possible. So a 2-week timeline would be great for us, I think.
All right. Unless you have anything else, Mayor, we appreciate your request, and we will carefully consider it.
Yeah, okay, thank y'all for your time, and thank you for working with us.
All right, thank you.
Have a good day.
Next on our agenda is Development Services. We have proposed rezoning request.
She's checking to see if they're in the lobby, Mr. Chair.
Well, we can move on to our 10:15, says discuss proposed amendments to the Harnett County Economic Development. Of course, Angie may not be here either.
I don't think so. Is anybody out there, Gina?
If there's
He
a-
left when I came in.
She's coming back.
I'm here on the call.
Okay.
Hey, I apologize, I was listening, expecting the 9:45 item. Looking at this item, per the Economic Development Strategic Plan adopted in 2017, as part of the Comprehensive Growth Plan, of course, the county created an Economic Development Council to work with the Economic Development Program. And I think that council is working diligently with the program, but looking at the bylaws as members change, and specifically representation from the Board of Commissioners, it has become difficult to maintain the composition as outlined in the bylaws, and I think in your package I had inserted section 2 or a page with section 2 composition. When you look at items F and G, 2 Harnett County Commissioners as appointed by the Board of Commissioners, and then G, 3 representatives who reside in the County Commissioner electoral districts that are not represented. There are times when the Board of Commissioner seats change as their district changes, then it keeps the rest of the composition out of compliance. So we have looked at this with the council and proposed that the language, and the council proposes that in item G, the language be added, 3 representatives who reside in the county commissioner electoral district that are not represented by the 2 county commissioner directors at the time of appointment, which would allow those who are currently serving that may be in the same district as a new appointed Board of Commissioner to remain on the council. So we'll have some consistency. And I know Ms. McCoy was at that meeting of the council when we discussed this. Commissioner McCoy, I don't know if you would like to add anything. Or if you all have any questions. I apologize that I'm not there.
Does anyone have any questions?
Well, as commissioners rotate off the board, even though you have a new commissioner come in, that member will still be on the board until their time on the board is up. Is that not correct?
Well, let me just use the example of when Mr. A's seat came available. On the council, we moved the commissioner from the council to the property court when Mr. A's seat came available. And then Commissioner Johnson came on to the council. So he is from District 2 as well as Pat Godwin Jr. So he will fulfill the unexpired term of the commissioner he replaced. So that they do have term expiration. But basically where we're at is when you look at the structure, we have 2 from District 2 right now. 1 from, and then 1 and 4 represented, and we have vacancies in District 3 and 5. So to be true to what the goals of the council are is to maintain as much across the county representation as possible. We would be looking at a vacancy and filling the vacant seat that currently exists from District 5 or 3.
Angie, let me ask you, on F, where you've got 2 county commissioners, those 2 can change, right? I mean, doesn't necessarily be the same. So you had a new board comes on, and as people are appointed, you could have a District 1 and 2, and then the next time you might have District 3 and 4. So that's why you're having a problem, right?
Yes, that is exactly what happened.
Yeah, I think that's the issue, Joe. It's not. The same thing happens on the properties court, the same kind of deal.
Any other questions for Angie? Well, thanks, Angie. Apparently you explained it correctly, or
Well, I don't know about that.
efficiently, because
But maybe the paperwork I sent up there explained it a little better than I did, but I appreciate you listening.
all right, thank you a lot.
Yes, sir, bye.
Next, I guess, Kimberly Honeycutt, will go to you. And that's post-insurance compliance policies and procedures for complying with continuing disclosure obligations.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. What I have before you is a continuing disclosure policy. I tried to be as brief in the agenda as I could, but anytime the county goes out and borrows debt out into the open market, part of our offering documents is a trend of our financial information, our tax base, our tax rate, collections, just basically basic statistical information as well as financial data. That is the information that we put out when people review our county to purchase our bonds. And so essentially, as such, every year we are required to annually disclose and update this information every single year with our audited financial information. What you have before you is an actual policy, because beforehand we never had a policy. So now they are requesting that we adopt a policy that specifically spells out the steps, talks about the different events that an events disclosure would be required to be done and submitted to the continuing disclosure agency, and that's Emma. That's our normally through S&P and Moody's. That's our continuing disclosure website. And so have you had a chance to review it? If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer what I can.
So, Kimberly, what you have to do is you have to describe the financial obligations that we've got so everybody will know where we are.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just like the last set of bonds that we sold, anytime that we put out information that we're getting ready to sell bonds, people automatically go to the Emma board, and that is kind of a repository of our financial information. And because you have the transparency part of the continuing disclosures, that anytime there's an event that's held, in other words, if we're late on a debt payment, if we were to have a huge taxpayer, like it's some sort of industry that constituted a large portion of our tax base, if we were to have a situation where, let's say that employer, for whatever reason, went bankrupt, that would be what we would call a continuing material event. So we would have to disclose that to our bondholders, because if part of our revenue, our tax-based revenue, is based on that value and that income, that could potentially impact our ability to repay our debt. So it's just I'm not sure exactly the word I'm looking for, but it is just continuing disclosure, plain and simple.
The questions?
They're already required to do that.
Yes, ma'am, but we really don't have a written policy that requires us to do that. And you'll see, I'm not sure if you remember all of that huge document that you just read and approved for the last debt issuance that we did, but contained within that document was that tiny little section that called for the continuing disclosure, because all of that financial information, it does require us in that document that we signed, we agreed to, that we would continue to do this. So every time we go out and issue more debt, that list gets longer.
Thank you. We now have development services in the room, so we will go back to our regular schedule, and we will gladly hear from either Jay or Mark, whoever's going to make their presentation, or both.
I don't know exactly if, oh, thank you, Jesus. Thank you so much. All right, now I can tell you what I was going to say. No, I'm just kidding. Now I don't mind presenting. Basically, we've got two rezonings. A long time. It's good to see everyone, too, by the way. It's been a long time. We have two rezonings that it's been in the hopper for a couple of months now. And basically, one of them is pretty easy, and the other one is fairly easy, but it could, it has the potential because you're taking away some commercial land along Ray Road, if you're familiar with that area. The property is currently split zone. And let me go to that one first. That's the Omega, and they're also the applicant in that one. And it's located out in western Harnett, like I said, specifically along Ray Road. And basically the commercial portion of the property, the folks that have owned this property is Omega, and they're a developer. They've owned it for a long time. And basically what they'd like to do is get rid of the commercial portion of the property. From what my understanding would be to do a housing development on the site. And I know that makes Joe happy. But at the same time, that's pretty much it without me going into full detail about the site. We wanted to make the board aware in the work session this before you got to your regular meeting because of this issue solely. But we are recommending that it be approved. Like I said, the property is currently split zoned. And so it would all go to RA20M, and I know that I spoke with Commissioner Johnson yesterday, had some questions about it, the potential of manufactured homes. And while you can never be 100% sure the property would be zoned to RA20M, it's just not typical for us to see manufactured homes on this type of property anymore. But at the same time, I wanted to say that it is going to be RA20M, if that is, a concern that maybe some of you have.
Well, why was it split zone to start with? Do you have any idea?
No idea. It was zoned in 2000, so honestly, it shouldn't have been split zoned, but it was done before I got here. Do you know?
I'll chime in on that if you don't mind. Sorry. Jay Sykes, good to see everybody. In real person, thank you. Yes, sir. The previous owner, prior to Omega, supposedly had set up some sort of a sale, and apparently, like Mark said, I'm not sure why it was split zoned, but they had it prepared to sell for commercial, and then they were going to go back and subdivide. I'm not sure why the chicken or egg on that process, but it was the previous owner that did it versus the existing owner.
You can kind of see it's zoned up along the road, which is typically where you would see the commercial. So maybe they had some intentions of doing some commercial up front and residential in the back.
I assume that the reason they want the 20 is for density, so they can get more.
Well, I mean, the most of their property's already zoned RA20M. They just want to be able to use the property, the whole property. That they already have the RA20M density, and that makes the most sense to make that the same.
Can we make it RA 100?
Could take us a long time, but we could. We'd have to
I like that idea even better.
jump through some hoops, get there, create a new zoning district.
So if you look at on Array Road, the piece on the left is the one that's the 14 acres, or the other one? Looks like
Both
the-
of them, right, Jeff?
Huh?
It's both of these, right?
That's right.
Yeah, it's all the two large parcels. You see the little red portion on your thing there that kind of comes along here, or up there, or if you want to go up, it's probably.
Okay,
Oh, I got you, it's at the front.
right, okay.
Just that little.
I got you, okay.
And you can see,
5 acres, well, no, I'm sorry.
there's quite a bit of, on the green, there's quite a bit of wetlands and unusable soil on this. So the entire 68 acres would not be able to be developed. They would plan to use water and sewer. Yeah, that's kind of where that outfall runs back up into Anderson Creek, coming from South Central.
So when you're having these meetings like this, how do y'all handle public comment when they had the planning board meeting
The planning board was completely done
prior to?
virtually.
Okay,
And, but I will tell you, the Board of Adjustment last night, we had our first in-person meeting. And it was held in the Commons, and it was done completely as a normal meeting. We didn't have any call-in, we didn't do any of that. If you wanted to come to the meeting, you had to show up to the meeting. And everything went great. Everything went smooth. I mean, I wasn't there, but I was checking in and got a report afterwards. And they had one case that was turned down, and they listened to 5 cases, got home at 9 o'clock last night. So,
wow.
so it was, but that was it had been 3 months before we had a case, so we kind of needed to do it to kind of clear the slate. But everything seemed to go well last night. In the recording system, there's a new recording system over there, and it's supposedly worked really well.
I got a question. This is Commissioner Johnson. Have you determined about how many houses he's going to put in there?
No, sir, we haven't seen a drawing on that. It's my understanding they're going to average around a quarter to half an acre a lot, depending on how much, or depending on how the way they phase it in, since they are going to utilize water and sewer.
Yes. Any idea on traffic impact?
No, sir, that's a good question. Yeah, that would, Ray Road is a pretty big facility out there now.
Yeah.
But you're right, it would add to the traffic out there. DOT would look at that, and, but we haven't, we don't have any preliminary information on that.
I have a question, Commissioner. When you're talking about manufacturing homes, are you talking about marginal homes too?
Modular.
Oh, modular homes. I doubt, like a mega construction, what's the name of their? Showcase Homes out of Fayetteville. I mean, they're probably all going to be stick-built homes. Like I said, it's far and few between that you see a manufactured home. Like I said, it could happen, but you just don't see it a lot, especially on a prime piece of property like this sitting out in this particular area.
Any other questions? Okay, I guess we'll go to the, to the next one, which is Larkin, Rufus, Chrisman, and Dorothy Chrisman.
Right. This case is, it's funny. It's basically the same case. They're getting rid of some commercial property, but this is family-owned land. I believe that they have a structure that's on site, and they're looking to build a home place on the land. So they don't want to get rid of all their commercial that they have. They just want to rezone a portion thereof. I think it's 5 acres, so they can put their home place on there. Did I say that correctly, Jeff?
Exactly right.
So, and you can see it's the back portion of the property over here. Right here, they just want to rezone to put a house on, to put their house on, so. They kept the portion up on 421 that would most likely be utilized for commercial anyway, and the back portion as a residence for themselves. So that one's pretty, in our opinion, pretty simple.
Any questions? Well, you did a really good job. Nobody's got any questions.
Hey, that's good. That's good. It's good to see y'all.
Mark, how many people did y'all have attend last night? Do you know?
It did not, it was quite a bit, it was total including applicants,
I haven't been.
20 to 30.
For 5 cases?
Yes, ma'am.
And y'all could hear good in there?
Yeah, there was no, they were very, at least the staff was very complimentary of the system. That was pretty important. I'll get a better rundown and let you all know. I knew that question would come up. And just so you know, I'll be on vacation next week, so Jay will be here Monday night to present to you all for your meeting. I assume y'all are having a in-person, or have that, or still working on that? Well, if you do have an in-person meeting, either Jay will be on the telephone talking to you, or wherever he needs to talk to you at, or he'll be in person, but it'll be Jay.
Well, that's the reason we had so many questions about how I worked in the commons area, because we were getting ready for the,
Right.
what
I
the
knew that we
next
were
chapter and
kind of.
phase is going to look like, so.
Absolutely. I think we were kind of doing the guinea pig thing for everyone. So, like I said, so far so good. And I'll get a full count and all that good stuff and see if there are any issues whatsoever. Let you guys know.
Okay, thank you a lot.
Yep.
Y'all work on that RA 100, would you?
I'll work on the RA1.
That's a new, I think that's a new requirement for Harnett County.
I'll put that in the hopper.
Next, we've got potential limited obligations refunding bond, Kimberly Honeycutt.
Yes, sir. Hello again. This is Kimberly Honeycutt, Finance Officer. I would like to talk to you about a possible refunding situation. Due to the current market environment, we just issued bonds, and I think we had probably one of the lowest rates that they've seen since the war. So we saw this as an opportunity to go out and take a look at our existing debt. We have identified potentially 10 debt obligations that the county has that are eligible to be refunded. Right now in this environment, we can take advantage of the premium, significantly decrease our debt and save money at the same time. And we have not nailed down all of the debt that's actually eligible, because some of it is callable, some certain sections of it are, but the ones that we have identified, we're looking at current coupon rates anywhere from, I think the lowest we've identified is 2.2 up to 2.535% interest. And right now, if we were to go out, and this is based on the June 23rd market, if we were to go out and issue that, I think the equivalent bank rate is about 1.9%. So would not lengthen the term of our time limits, but what it would do is it would enable us to say between the general fund and public utilities, we're looking in excess of saving about over $3 million. I don't have the definite figures right now, but if at the current market as of June 23rd, we would be looking at saving right around about $3.3 million, and that would be between us and public utilities. The majority of it would be for the general fund. And if the market were to actually go up a little bit, that savings would drop, but it would still be right in the neighborhood of about $3 million. So in terms of that debt service fund, we had set aside or established a debt service fund for our schools and our general obligation debt, or our general fund debt. The annual savings would be probably the equivalent about 1 to 2 additional months of sales tax. So instead of us having a 12-month, we're looking at maybe a 13, 14-month equivalent. And over time, that with our investments that we're going to start working on as far as that debt fund is concerned, we're looking at being able to put aside additional monies to be able to fund future structures. So it's a definite win-win, and especially when we factor in our issuance cost, because some of these bonds we will have to refund at an additional cost, but the overall net savings, we're looking at well over $3 million over the term. And right now, we're looking at probably around $80 million, refunding in the neighborhood of $80 million. And so if you are amenable to it, we will have the documents drawn up, and then we'll have those at the next board meeting for your approval. My favorite topic. Oh, and there will be a public hearing too.
Sounds good to me.
And the reason we're pushing it through, this is Paula Stewart, is because with the rates the way they are, we need to get it while we can, because we don't know what's going to happen. And that's why we kind of pushed it on you right now and doing it Monday night, but we felt like it was in the county's best interest to go ahead and pursue it.
Yes, I agree. So bring it to us.
All right.
We
And
look-
then
we look forward to it.
once we nail down the numbers, we'll be able to give you something a little more concrete. But there again, until we actually, the day of the refunding, we get a lot closer, we'll have definite numbers that we can give you. But right now, they're very, very promising.
Great, sounds great. I wonder if Bill Tyson, is he going to call in or is he going to?
He's on his way.
Okay.
Chairman, yeah, if you could go to the next one, please.
Well, that'll be county manager's report.
Yeah, I mean, Kimberly, I just want to say that's the only good thing happening, ain't it? So that's the only good thing happening with the rates coming up. They just
Yes,
coming
ma'am.
down.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So the first item under the report is our meeting agenda for July 20th at 6 PM, and we need to discuss whether we're going to attend and have it in person at the Commons area, as we were just speaking about, or how you want to do that. And then we can discuss the agenda after we have the discussion about whether you want to do it in person and let people, the public come in, or I guess this would be the time to talk about that.
I think it's time to open it up.
Are y'all comfortable having it here? Or at the Commons, or?
Well, if they had a good look at the Commons, that'd be a good place to start. I mean, let people feel comfortable. We're trying to do what's best for the public. We're okay where we are, but the public needs to feel good about it.
And one thing I did mention to the chairman this morning, regardless of where you hold your meeting, I think taking temperatures at the door is an option. It's kind of common practice now, and someone could do that before they come in, then they'll have their face masks on.
And we have the temperature guns the health department has bought. We can use those if we need to for the meetings. So we can just plan for the July 20th to be in person at the Commons area if that is what,
But I'm not for it.
okay.
I'm going against it, because if we don't wear masks, how do you expect the public to wear masks? So I'm not for it. I mean, I know it's time for the public to, but things are still in an uproar in this state. Numbers are still going up. Numbers are still going up in the county. So I'm just one vote, but I'm going to express my opinion. If we can't do the right thing, why should we expect the public to do it? No, I'm not for it.
And one thing, we would still want to have these call-in options too, for people who are not comfortable coming to the meeting. So now your meetings would be however y'all choose to do that, but we still want to have it where people can call in and where presenters can call in if someone is not comfortable, if y'all were to go that way.
I feel that.
I don't see that you would ever change that going forward.
That's right.
because we've had more people attend through the phone than we normally would, because they can, sit and listen, and so that would still happen.
What would be the capacity over there as far as the public? How many would be able to come in, or do we know that?
I don't.
We haven't measured it yet. We were just kind of waiting to get your ideas today before we,
I mean, if you did in here, you can host 12 guests, but I don't think it's as comfortable for people, even though they're 6 feet apart, as the Commons is so big and open. But I mean, so the Commons is 3 times as big, but you can still put on there limited, and we would set the stations. And so it would be limited attendance. So I would say 40, maybe 40 public, if you're talking about the room, I'm guessing. If y'all can draw 40, we'll get them in there.
But how do you turn them away from the door? Because people come. And then once you get that number of people, you're going to have to cut it off.
Yeah. Well, and
Because a common area is large, but it's not that large. You go in there and you look around to the room, and it's not that space.
well, when we meet our number here, they have to wait out in the hall or go into the spillover room under normal circumstances. So we could just say, nobody, whoever's taking temperatures is also keeping the count. No
Last
one else
time we
is.
had 40 people.
Well, I'm just,
When was the last time we had 10?
Well, one of the reasons that we've got, of course, the people that's called in can't see. The reason we've got this room set up today with seats is to let you know what it looked like if we stayed here and started allowing the public to come in with an overflow over in the workshop.
you can do 12
In the conference room.
here, staff calling in, some staff except the essential, and then you could do 5 in the flow room. If you know, that's 17 if you choose to go that route.
So that was our two options, either if we go over there, if we stay here. You see how many seats we've got here? How many is it, Gina? 12, and then there's 6 in the other 5. So that'd be a total of 17 people could come if we stay here. And then, of course, obviously, we can control and protect the environment, the employees and the citizens here versus going over there. And of course, if you've ever been in the Commons, my only concern is, one of my concerns is acoustics in there is not always, so the sound system, I don't know, we'd have to address all those things.
Yeah, and Mark said he got good feedback on that. Get it? Good feedback? But that he would follow up and make sure that was the case.
But either, the situation we're discussing, either way, Joe, you're right. We've got to go start opening so the public, the citizens can come to our meetings. So whether it's here, if it goes over there, so that's the decision we've got to make. Do we stay here, do we go there? So.
And our attorneys are more comfortable with the rezoning public hearing. I think, if I'm not speaking incorrectly, they're more comfortable if you allow people to come in public if they choose to, because it is a rezoning. So Chris said, you know, we'll accommodate whatever, and legally we can do things, but they feel like if the applicant can show up and speak to you, that's better than calling you.
Okay. Well, we've
But
heard.
we can do that if we stay here and put the overflow over there.
Yes, ma'am.
I think this probably would be a more comfortable situation than moving to the common area.
So, Commissioner McCoy's expressed and Commissioner Miller's expressed, so Commissioner Springle and Commissioner Johnson, what's y'all's thoughts?
If it's for a public hearing, you know, with typically what happens in a public hearing is we have people come in and make their presentation, and we vote on it one way or the other, and they leave. So we could accommodate people here as a trial. I would say let's stay here as a trial and just see how it works. And then if we need to go to a bigger location next time, we could.
I'd be more inclined to stay here with the virus increasing trial basis anyway for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks.
And then they are required to wear a mask to get in the door.
Right.
Okay.
Just so you know, I mean, they have to wear the mask, and we'll do the temperature, and then whatever else.
So, Commissioner Miller, I see you shaking your head in the affirmative, so you want to try our first public forum, so to speak, we do it here, and then after that, we'll make a decision.
I'm in agreement with that.
So do we need to vote on that? I see it, Dwight, I mean, everybody, we're all in agreement, we're going to have our first semi-public meeting will be here on next Monday night? Okay, all right,
Okay.
sounds like a plan.
Well, if you'll look at your agenda for Monday night, there's a couple things on here that were pending the work session today. Item F is the Health Director requesting approval to establish a new, the COVID test on their chart of fees. Also, the Health Department requests approval to accept $10,202 from the Division of Public Health for COVID-19 pandemic. Emergency Services requests the adoption of the statewide mutual aid agreement between Harnett County and North Carolina Emergency Management. Harnett Regional Water requests approval of write-offs for the first quarter of 2020 in the amount of $21,462.01. All of these accounts have been delinquent for more than 3 years. Item J, Administration requests approval to accept $712,471 in funding provided through the Mid-Carolina COG Home and Community Care Block Grant.
And that's K in front of you.
Right. Yeah, and then the Health Department has gotten a chance to accept some additional COVID-19 funds, and we just got that in the amount of $28,710. And then we had the 2 public hearings that we just spoke about, and then the public hearing that Kimberly mentioned, in an amount not to exceed $90 million for the refunding or refinancing. And then we're going to have John and Larry here to do a COVID-19 update. And that's about it for the agenda. There will be one thing, I'm not sure if it's in your packet today, but it will be in there Monday night. The employee turnover information that we've been talking to y'all about. We did an annual employee turnover report, and it'll be in your packet. And we have really come down in our turnover, which was the goal of a lot of things we've been doing. So we're proud. We went from 66% in fiscal year 2019 to 49% in fiscal year 2020. So that was pretty good for just the departments of social services, sheriff's office, and emergency services, the departments that have a lot of turnover. So we were just proud of those numbers. So, and our average employee unemployment rate for our employees is 5.82%.
How about the item from the tax department? Is that going to be on the agenda or not?
Well, he's going to make his presentation here shortly, so
I don't think it has to be, once he speaks about it, we'll decide if it needs to go on there. I don't know if it's something that you have to vote on, I think it's just an interpretation and something y'all just give him direction on. I don't think it has to be a vote, but we'll let Dwight answer that question after he makes his presentation. And that's all I've got for the county manager's report, unless there's something else, Gina, that I forgot.
Okay. Well, our next item then is discussion regarding expired tax exclusions and exemptions. Bill Tyson, so your timing is great.
If I've ever had gone to a meeting, I didn't have to wait 1 second to get up here. We had talked briefly about this at another time. The tax department is charged with auditing exemptions, and we have a specified time period to do that. It hadn't been done up through some previous administrations, and I'm certainly not blaming them for it, because we have some tools now that we didn't have in those days. But we've run an audit of the exemptions held by elderly and disabled veterans. Now, these taxpayers are all deceased. Many of them have been deceased for a little while. Those pieces of those parcels of land and the improvements that are on them have not been recorded any differently than they have been, or else we would have been able to pick it up through that. What we've done is now we've identified everybody in this particular grouping. There's about 130 taxpayers, deceased taxpayers, who are involved in this particular situation. And we've already addressed changing those exemptions for 2020. And so what I'd like to hear, and I'll be glad to answer any questions about any of this, what you think. The Machinery Act does give us a way to go back and collect the taxes and penalties for the period 2015 through 2019. And so I would like to get some direction on what you would like the tax department to do regarding that. Generally, when you mention those terms, elderly, disabled, and disabled vets, then, you know, some people maybe take things the wrong way. They're looking at things a little bit differently. All I'm interested in is getting our database up to date and clear where it's supposed to be. So that's what I have. Again, we've already gone on and done that for 2020, so no problems there, and going forward, and we'll keep a little bit better. We'll keep some eyes on that going forward. So what I would like to know is what your pleasure is in terms of what I should do about the 2015 through 2019 back taxes there.
Your figure was 930 people, is that what I heard?
No, sir, about 134 people.
I was thinking, wow, no, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a lot of folks. In terms of...
let me ask you this, Bill. Process forward, you know, what is your process forward to keep this from happening again?
Yes, sir. We'll be reviewing a quarter of the parcels just on the same as our revow schedule will be. We'll use the same process that we did this time to examine a quarter each of these exemptions from now till the next 4 years out. We'll catch everybody. We won't be behind again, except by a year maybe. So we can catch all this once we get the database completely up to date.
Hey, Mr. Dyson, this is Commissioner McCoy. I want to fully understand what you're doing. And, I've had some citizens call me about some things and all that related to Texas and all. So what it is that when the property owners pass on, and the property is willed over to the family members. And the property owners had tax relief from regular taxes, right?
Yes, ma'am. From the property taxes, at least a portion of the property taxes.
At least a portion of it. But after that property owner passes on, what's been happening is that relief is being passed on and been given to the ones that are inheriting the land.
So, yes, and to other taxpayers who are not eligible for that particular exclusion or exemption.
Okay. Just want to make it very plain and clear, because I have had people to call me and ask me about this particular issue.
Okay.
So I want to make sure I'm clear is what we're doing.
But that is correct. This is not doing anything. This is not taking anything away from anybody who's eligible for it, because we're glad to do that. But it's just a matter of that once a deceased taxpayer and/or the deceased taxpayer's spouse, who would also qualify under that, once both of them are deceased, then that is, we have to go back and assess at regular rates with no exclusions.
I understand that. One more question for you. When they are eligible for that income, what is the maximum income for a family?
Okay.
Ownership.
Well, I'll give you three pieces of information regarding that. On a elderly exemption exclusion, it's based upon income, which you have to have an income of $32,500 or less. And then the exemption is, if you qualify under that, then the exemption is either $25,000, that's the minimum, or up to 50% of the value of the home, that property.
Thank you so much. That answers my questions. I'm asking the questions simply because when I vote, I want to make sure I'm voting in the right way.
What happens, Barbara, is a case where it's not willed to somebody else. If somebody dies and grandson moves into the house, and the property's never been transferred to anybody, that's what happens, and that's why it keeps continuing. And the benefits shouldn't go to the grandson.
No, I understand. Just want to make sure I fully understand.
Does the grandson know he's getting that benefit?
Well, he gets a tax bill and it shows the exemption on there.
Some would claim they don't know it, but.
Oh, they know it.
I don't know.
But Bill, the key is under the Machinery Act, I mean, it's the taxpayer's obligation to update when they list each year.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's
Even though
very
it slipped
clear.
through the cracks here, they still have that obligation.
Yes, sir.
So the question I would have is, out of your 130 that you're talking about, if you forgave that for the last 5 years, how much money are you talking about?
$101,624. But that's just the tax. There's some penalties that would probably be about $30,000 if we went that way.
And the question would be whether you could collect it.
And yeah, the key word is these people were deceased, and now you're
Lien
going,
against the property.
Well, yeah, I understand that.
yeah, but it's a,
If you don't collect it, you can you can foreclose on it.
Close on the property.
but remember deceased, don't lose sight of that word. The person that owned it has deceased, and the other person may or may not have understood that, so. So that's the reason we had a discussion we have had before we brought it to the agenda is, do you try to go back or we do it going forward? And of course, that's what we're talking about today. So any more questions?
I think you got to go back.
But if you go back, would you have to do it on a case-by-case basis? Because some, I mean, you've got to really analyze to find out if the widow, whichever is still, there's a lot of.
A lot of it would depend on number of heirs, that sort of thing. It could be a process that would be a lengthy process, but it could be done.
How much would it cost Harnett County to go back and try to collect this money?
Sir?
How much would it cost Harnett County to go back and try to collect this money?
We haven't ascertained exactly because I don't have a whole lot of experience in that particular piece of it, but you're looking at 5 years and you're looking at having to likely have attorneys in on this as well. So it'd be, when you count our staff and those, you know, I'd be speculating, but I suspect it'll cost us at least half to get this.
But it can't put the families and the landowners in a difficult position when we say we're gonna go back, and they gotta come up with this money without any notification or anything. I mean, is there any way we could,
Well, depending on what you tell me, we'll be notifying everybody anyway, because they'll be seeing that for 2020, there's no exemption there. So there may be a few questions anyway, and then let me also explain, not everybody goes all the way back to 2015. You may be 16, maybe 17, maybe 18, but you know, some are more current than others.
Bill, the key is the department does discovery all the time, not just in this item, but in discovery. And when you discover things where people don't list properly, as against other taxpayers that do list properly, the question is, should they have to pay and should they be penalized? I mean, that's just the way it always goes, the way I look at it from a legal standpoint. And if you forgive these, is that fair to other taxpayers that report like they should? I mean, that's what you got to look at politically, I guess.
And again, remember, elderly and disabled, it's not all the taxpayers. I'm not trying to taint it either way, but you make sure we understand the segment of the population we're talking about. It's elderly and disabled, not the general public, so to speak. So as we make our decision, I'm not telling us what, I'm just saying just make sure we understand the segment of our population that we're talking about.
But those people are deceased. I don't mean to keep hounding this, but like, it's the heirs of the property, not them. It's the heirs of it's the heirs of them that, or whoever is obtaining the property. So it's regular people just like you and me that we're talking about taxing.
Yep.
And it is in the general statute that does allow it. And in my opinion, we should have been doing these audits, and that's one of the reasons we're finding this out, because the tax office was not doing the audits. So I think this is one of those cleanup type things that there's things we keep finding all across the county, and this is just one more method of trying to do it like we're supposed to be doing it. To be fair to all taxpayers, to Dwight's point.
Right.
And that's, yeah.
And we also, the question was asked you, there's going to obviously be a cost. It's not like we're going to collect 130 or 40. We may get it, but we're going to also spend a portion or percentage of that trying to get that money.
Yes, sir, and I'm sorry I can't tell you that because, you know, I'm not sure about it, but.
You're doing that now. Wiley Pope's office in Dunn, he's contracted with the county. He does tax foreclosure, so this would just come under his purview. Okay. If you went back and recaptured these and people didn't pay, then they send it to Wiley just like they do all the others that don't pay, and he forecloses on them as they come. So system's already set up. Yes, you have to pay him to do it, but attorney fees are usually included within the foreclosure cost also, so that's.
Okay. So what's our pleasure, board? We've had our discussion. Is this something we put on the agenda for Monday night to vote on, or? I don't see any.
Works for me.
Okay.
And this will be listed as a discussion item?
Yes. Yeah, I don't think we should put this on the consent agenda. We should have a discussion on it. Everybody shaking their head affirmative on that, so I guess that's okay.
Thank you.
Modify your agenda, put it on the agenda for Monday night then.
This is number 2.
Thank you, Bill. Do we have need for a closed session?
Yes.
I knew we were not going to get away with it for so long.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we go into closed session to consult the county's legal counsel in order of pursuit to serve the county clerk privilege concerning the handling of certain litigation, including the following cases: a traveler's, what is this, indemnity? Indemnity Company versus Johnson Control Incorporation, U.S. District of Court, Eastern District of North Carolina, file number 519-CV-00580D. That's my motion.
Second.
Commissioner Springle seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All in attendance, commissioners voted to go into closed session. We're now in closed session.